All right. Hello, everyone. So welcome to Logic and Critical Thinking. Let's just real fast do just some Zoom etiquette. Just make sure we're all on the same page with that. If everyone could mute yourself for the time being, you also have the ability to mute or unmute yourself. Feel free to unmute yourself whenever you'd like, whenever you've got something to say. My hope is that we can use this remote format for at least the first couple weeks as just a good opportunity for us to treat it sort of like a normal class where you can ask questions. Feel free to ask me things in the chat. Feel free to make comments in the chat. Unmute yourself, say something in that format. All that's fine. Just leave yourself muted until you have something to say, just so we don't get any feedback. We don't get any, noise pollution interfering with the class session. So my name is Dr. Paul DeRado. I'll be your instructor for the semester. Feel free to address me however you'd like. Paul, Dr. DeRado, instructor, professor, whatever. Don't really care. What we're going to do this semester is some logic and some critical thinking. So I figured we'd do today, because I know these remote classes are rough. I know it can be hard to sit through them. My goal is to keep them short, so to make up for it. So what we'll do today, we'll real fast go through some of the sort of course policy things. We'll talk a little bit about the course structure, which is a little bit up in the air at CSU at the moment. You might have heard about all of this. I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on if you haven't. And then we'll go through the syllabus just a little bit, talk about the grading format for the course, and then with actually the more interesting stuff, getting to the real stuff, talking a little bit about what logic and critical thinking is going to look like, what the course is, what we're going to talk about, what you've gotten yourself in for by enrolling. So that's the plan for today. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions, thoughts, comments about anything? All right, awesome. So let's just start going through things. So for the first at least 2 weeks of the semester, all of CSU is remote, or at least most of CSU is moved remote. I'm told that on the third week of classes, I'll be told, or I'll be updated what the situation's gonna look like. So what that precisely means could be variable. But at least for the first 2 weeks of the semester, we're gonna be doing remote instruction. So the way that'll work for us is that we'll meet in Zoom Tuesdays and Thursdays at the normally scheduled class time. Like I said, I'm going to try to have those sessions run pretty quickly. My goal, 30, 45 minutes tops, and have it be a lot of group stuff, not just me lecturing, because this is a rough format to do that in. So we'll try to have it be predominantly that sort of format. Once we're allowed, we're going to switch the class over to a hybrid structure, which means we'll meet face-to-face. I'll divide you in half. Half of you will come in on Tuesdays, half of you will come in on Thursdays. And once that happens, we'll use pretty much the whole time frame, meet face to face. For both of those teaching modalities, though, I'm going to record the sessions and make them available if for whatever reason you can't make a class. So let's say, for example, when we're doing some face to face stuff, you have COVID symptoms. Stay home. Please stay home, right? There will be a recording of the session you can use to get caught up with everything you've missed. Similarly, here I'll be recording these Zoom sessions and posting them to the class Canvas page. So again, you can have access to them in that format as well. We'll also end the semester in remote instructional format after the spring break, where no one's going to come back. Everything is going to go remote after spring break. So we'll sort of begin and end remote, and then sort of for the middle portion of it to try to be doing some face-to-face stuff, some hybrid face-to-face stuff. So that's the rough plan for what that's going to look like. Again, any questions, thoughts, comments? All right. So let's talk then what the grading in the course is going to look like, just so you know what your expectations are going to be. Both when we're doing the hybrid stuff and when we're doing the remote stuff, I'm going to be posting a series of videos that are sort of in lieu of lectures. The videos are intended to be really short. They should be about 10 minutes long, 10 to 15. So you can get the sort of the lecture-y stuff in that way. So it's really awkward to lecture in this format. So the expectation is that you'll watch those videos before you come to class, and then sort of your reward for doing so, there will be quizzes on Canvas that you'll take about the videos. Why do I call that a reward? It's a reward because you can take the quizzes as many times as you'd like, and Canvas tells you when you've gotten the right answers. So what does that mean? 100% for everyone, right? Free points. You can go back, watch the video. Maybe you go back, find a part of the video you need to get refreshed with, right? The goal of it is just to make sure that you're solid with some of the comments before coming to the class sessions, because particularly when we're doing the hybrid stuff and we're only meeting once a week, we're going to really need to take advantage of the class time that we have. So I want you to have a reasonably solid foundation for that. So those quizzes, you'll take them through Canvas, and they'll be worth 10% of the total grade in the course. Free, if you do all of them, should be a free 100%, free points for everyone. Next thing, there will be in-class activities that we'll do during the class sessions. When we're doing it remote, like we'll be doing at the beginning of the semester, we'll be doing group stuff. I'm going to assign you actually some permanent groups. We'll actually start with those on Thursday. Couple really good, nice advantages to doing it that way. First of all, it means you don't have to just listen to me talking endlessly, which is a plus. Second of all, it means that you'll actually get to know some people in the class. There'll be a few people you've actually seen their faces, talked to, interacted with. And also, I've had really just good success with this group stuff from just a students doing well in exams standpoint. It's all fine, well, and good to be learning logic from me. Valuable, you'll get stuff out of it, but it'll be even better when you're learning logic from one another. So these group activities are sort of intended to facilitate that kind of instruction. Again, we'll go over the answers to all of them in class once you've talked about it in your group as well. So again, when you turn these in to Canvas, you again should have all the answers right. So again, you're here, you do all this stuff, you should get 100% on all of these assignments as well. And this will be worth 20% of the total grade in the class. So if you sort of show up, do all the work, you should have 30% of the course guaranteed, right? You should have all the stuff you need. Once we switch to a hybrid course format, we can't really do group work anymore because of the various COVID restrictions. We're all going to be wearing the masks. We'll be separated too far apart from one another. There's people screaming across the room. So what we'll do instead during the hybrid stuff is we'll just go over the assignments together as a class. Same thing, though. You'll still get all the answers. We'll still go over everything before you turn it in. Those assignments will be due by the end of the day that the class session was. So again, let's say you're feeling sick. Let's say you're having to take the course remotely for some other reason. You can use the class recording to fill out that activity and turn it in, even if you weren't in the class in the class session itself. You can use the recordings to again get all the answers so that you turn in everything with all the right answers. Last thing, they're going to be exams, and that'll be where most of your grade in the class is going to be coming from. The exams will be worth 70% of your total grade. There'll be a bunch of them, and they'll be a little bit shorter. Like exam might be making them seem like they're a little longer than they are. There'll be an exam basically every 2 chapters in the textbook, or so. It'll vary a little bit, but every 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. There'll be an exam. These exams will be done through Canvas. They're open note, open book, because since you'll be doing them through Canvas, rather than trying to enforce something, just you use your notes or use the book. There is going to be a time limit, however, to make up for it. So you still are going to need to be prepared before coming to the exams. But once you're in them, you can use all the notes. You don't have to worry about if you forget what an ad hominem fallacy is. You don't have to freak out about it. You can look that up. But you need to know what to do with that information and be ready to go with it because of the time limit on the exam. And these exams will be a little bit on the harder side, that they're really going to be sort of how I determine most of your grade. But because of the way that the course is set up, if you're able to get an 85% average on the exams and you do all the other work, you do all the quizzes, get 100% in all of them, do all the group work and get 100% in all that, you only need to get an 85% average on the exams to get an A in the class. So they will be more challenging as a result, but you only need to get a B on them to do well in the course. There are going to be homework problems that I'll give you. I'm not going to collect them and grade them. It would just take too long. I wouldn't be able to get you feedback fast enough for it to be meaningful. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to give you answer sheets that you can use to sort of check your work. Think of the homework basically as exam study prep. The problems on the homework are going to be exactly like the problems on the exam. So you go through them, you're doing well, you're checking your work, you'll be in pretty good shape for the exam. Conversely, if you find you're struggling with some of the problems, please come to my office hours and we can go over stuff more there. I'm going to have office hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the 3 days we're not meeting, from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. I can also make appointments if those times don't work for people. So think of the homework in the office hours basically as how to sort of do the prep, make sure you're ready to go for the exams. And that's pretty much it for the course format, course structure questions. Does anyone have any questions about any of that material before we actually get on the interesting things? All right, awesome. So let's actually do interesting stuff now. So that's all the business. We got the business out of the way. Throw that away. What have you signed up for? What is this class? What are you taking here? All right, and let's do this. I'm going to ask these as questions. You don't actually need to answer it, but maybe think the answer through in your own head. Okay. Is it ever true for any of you that sometimes the world kind of doesn't seem to make a lot of sense? The world kind of seems as confusing. Is that ever the case for anyone? Is it ever the case maybe that other people sometimes seem to not be making any sense? It's even weirder with people, right? Like maybe you've had this experience where you'll be talking to someone and you'll be like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then 2 hours later, you'll be like, wait a second, did it make sense? Or maybe the opposite. You'll be listening to someone and be like, that person's an idiot. They don't know what they're talking about. And then as you're getting ready for bed, brushing your teeth, you're like, oh, wait a second. Was that a good point, actually? Huh. Have you ever had that experience? Okay. And finally, have you ever had the experience, perhaps, of maybe not making sense to yourself? Of not being clear if your reasons for believing things are good or bad, if what you believe makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. All right. And as someone said in the chat, yes, with exclamation marks. That would be my experience as well. To all of these, yes, with exclamation marks, right? The world is confusing and this is frustrating to us. All right, what are we gonna learn in logic and critical thinking? What are you gonna get out of this course? Well, big promise I'm gonna make, I'm gonna give you tools that you can use to help make the world make a little bit more sense, right? We're gonna learn some ways that you can think about things that such that you're more likely to sort of reach better answers about the world. I'll give you some ways of sort of interpreting things that other people say, some tools and resources you can use to figure out if other people are making sense, if they're not making sense, or more commonly, if they're sort of making sense. That'll be more common. And then also some ways that you can sort of approach your own thoughts, your own beliefs, check them, make sure, am I thinking about this well? Am I not thinking about this well? Whatever the topic is going to be. Weird thing about logic, I saw looking through the rosters, a few of you have taken philosophy classes before, which is excellent. Don't worry if you haven't. I'm not assuming any background knowledge in philosophy for the class. And part of the reason is because logic and critical thinking is really different than probably any other class you're going to take at CSU, even other philosophy classes. I mean, if you take, say, a math class, you know what the class is going to be about, right? It's going to be about math. You take an economics class, you know what the class is going to be about. It's going to be about economics. Even most philosophy classes, if you take an ethics class, you know what the class is going to be about. It's going to be about ethics. Logic and critical thinking is really different. This class isn't going to be about any particular topic because the tools we're going to work on will help you think better about anything you wanted to think about. And so the examples I'm going to use throughout the semester, they're going to be all over the place. Well, when I'm feeling maybe, like making everyone depressed, maybe I'll use a political example. Maybe we'll do examples from natural sciences. Maybe we'll do some ethics stuff. We'll do some philosophy examples. But sometimes we might talk about like going to restaurants or Taylor Swift albums, because all of those are things it's possible for you to think about, and it's possible for you to think better or worse about. Right? And let's all be real. I've seen nothing produce more vitriolic debate, forget politics, than Star Wars movies. Nothing gets anger to emerge on the internet louder than that kind of topic, right? I mean, because indeed, all of these are areas where we can think, and the tools that we're going to use can work in all those areas. So the big picture promise I'm making to you for this semester, I got to live up to it, but the promise I'm making is that the skills you learn in this class are going to help you whatever you do. Whatever your major is, whatever you want to think about, talk about, whatever you're interested in, this class will help you do it better. Right? That's the promise. So now I have to live up to it, obviously. So, big promises for the beginning of the semester, but that's at least the goal. That's at least what I'm going to try to give you are these tools and resources. The operative assumption that I'm going to be working under this semester is that all of us, every single human being in the world, is rational. Right? What do I mean by that? So let's define the terms. What I mean by rational is that all of you, every single one of you, believes a bunch of things, and you all think you have good reasons to believe those things. Now, whether or not you actually do is beside the point. You all think you have good reasons. Indeed, I've never met anyone in the world that that's not true for. And I tried. I actually do this at the beginning of every single logic class. I give people the opportunity to try to argue with me on this point, and no one's ever done it. I've never heard someone say, hey, I have really strong opinions about abortion, Paul, but you shouldn't listen to me because I'm really stupid and I don't know what I'm talking about. Have not heard that. No one's tried that one out, right? We all think the things that we believe, we have good reasons to believe them. Now, some of you might be wondering, people have asked me this before, well, okay, but what about like maybe certain religious traditions that'll talk about maybe the importance of things like faith rather than reason or something? Okay, fine. But I teach medieval philosophy and philosophy of religion here at CSU. And I can assure you, people who believe that faith is the right way to approach life believe that that's the rational thing to do. They believe that they have good reasons to think that faith is the best way to approach life in the world. I teach medieval philosophy. I teach an Islamic theologian named Al-Ghazali. And he's really straightforward about this. He's just like, if you don't believe in Islam, you're just stupid. Because like the rational thing to do is to have faith in Islam. Right? He thinks he's got good reasons. Now, again, does he? Well, you'd have to take medieval philosophy. We can talk about that there, right? But I mean, he thinks the important thing from our standpoint, though, is he thinks he's got good reasons for the claims that he's making. Okay? And so as a result, that means it's possible for us to investigate those reasons, try to figure out what those reasons are. Right. So what's the problem here? If we're all rational, what's the problem? Okay. Again, going to ask some questions. Raise your hand or whatever to think about it. Okay, let's do some examples of things that maybe you feel passionately about. So maybe my guess is probably at least some of you in here have really strong opinions about abortion. Again, you don't have to raise your hand or anything, but my guess is a large percentage of you have really strong opinions about the topic. Don't care what they are. Doesn't matter right now. My guess is that many of you, maybe some different people, maybe some same, have really strong opinions about Black Lives Matter. And again, let's get to the end, so leave the political topics. My guess is many of you have really strong opinions about Star Wars movies. Okay. Now, there are 36 of us here right now. What do you imagine the odds are that those of us who feel strongly about any of those topics all agree? What do you think the chances are that the 36 of us all have the same opinions? No, I'm guessing probably not, right? Not a good chance of that being the case, despite the fact that we all feel really strongly, right? And again, maybe those particular topics, maybe you don't feel strongly about any of them, but I could find something, right? If I kept going, I could find something you feel strongly about. What does this mean? What does this prove? It seems to suggest that the fact that we feel strongly that we're right about something isn't really worth very much. Because let's just do the abortion example, right? Whatever you think about abortion, I promise you, it won't even be hard. I can find someone who really strongly, confidently believes the opposite. Okay? Same with Star Wars, same with Taylor Swift albums, same with whatever. Okay? Just feeling confident, feeling strong, feeling like we have good reasons for our beliefs, it doesn't mean we're right. Right? And if it did, again, we'd have a problem because I can find all kinds of other people who feel just as strongly about the opposite thing. And so what that means is, if we want to sort of live up to our own rationality, we actually have to investigate whether or not we really do have good reasons for the things that we believe, or whether or not we're wrong in thinking that we do have good reasons. And we'll start with this right away on Thursday. We're going to talk about this a lot. It's actually really hard to figure out why we even believe a lot of the stuff that we believe. It's a very strange and difficult task actually trying to figure it out. I'll just use an example from my own life. So when I was a freshman in high school, right, young little kid, that's when you're just starting to formulate opinions about some of this stuff. I was on the high school debate team, which my guess probably doesn't surprise many of you. Okay, and so the leader of the high school debate club at this time, he was a senior in high school, and I thought he was the coolest guy in the world. Of course, it was the high school debate team, so I was probably wrong. But regardless, at the time, I thought this guy was the coolest guy in the world. So guess what the political opinions of young freshman Paul were? Well, they were the exact same as this cool senior. Right? Now, is that a good reason for forming beliefs? Probably not. Right? Unless I really got lucky and that senior just happened to be the smartest guy in the world, that's probably not a very good way of formulating beliefs. And I look back upon a lot of those things that I believed as a freshman. I still do believe some of them, and I don't believe others. Right? I just, I was wrong about some of them, at least it now seems to me that I was wrong about some of them. What we're going to need to do in this class is sort of interrogate why we believe the things that we believe, call it into question, and investigate if the reasons that we think are good really are as good as they seem to be. And you all have a way harder time than young freshman Paul did. Because that was when I was a freshman, that was probably like 95, something in that range, late 90s. There were like 15 TV networks, a couple newspapers. The internet existed, but like there wasn't anything on it really. Like you couldn't find stuff. There were no social media networks. Contrast that with the situation you all find yourself in right now. There are social media networks. There are thousands upon thousands of websites you can find arguing for any random position you might want to find. I mean, I could show you links because I had a friend who was into it for a while. I could show you all the Flat Earth Society links, and that will argue that what you should believe is that the Earth is flat. I don't recommend you spend a lot of time with them, but I could show them to you in YouTube, right? It won't be hard, right? There's Reddit. There's Twitter. There's Facebook. I remember Facebook first occurring when I was in college. Actually, I think I was a senior in college when Facebook first emerged. Right. There are lots of TV networks, TV news networks, and unlike when I was young and they were all basically at least trying to be impartial, the news networks now are very explicitly partisan actors. Right. They're advocating for positions. And we'll talk about this a little bit more as the semester goes on. It's not necessarily either good or bad, but it's at least different. It's at least a change. You all have so many sources of information coming at you. And to be blunt, a lot of them are junk. Right? A lot of them are nonsense. See all the Flat Earth YouTube pages or whatever if you don't believe me, right? You have so much more information you have to sort through to figure out what to do with it, right? Figure out what gets the count as good evidence for some belief versus what information should you not trust is unreliable and coming at you for bad reasons, trying to deceive you, trying to mislead you. Right? So your task, I mean, it's not that the task is ever easy, but it's harder for you all than maybe it's ever been, right? Because of just how much information you have to sort through. So what we're going to do this semester is try to give you tools to help you deal with all the noise. Figure out, based on the evidence available to you, what actually do you have good reasons to believe and what things don't you have good reasons to believe. I'm not really going to try to answer questions this semester, solve debates or anything like that. There actually going to be one exception. There is one political debate that we'll talk about in probably about a month or so that really does reduce to a sheerly logical error. So I'll solve one thing for you. There'll be one problem we can get rid of. But by and large, that's not what the class is going to be about. My goal is going to be to give you tools that you can use to figure out what you should believe and what you shouldn't believe, rather than just having me tell it to you. Yeah, and so that's what we're going to work on. We're going to try to get a toolkit that you can all use to help the world make more sense to you and make the way you think about the world make more sense to you. So let's maybe pause for a quick second. Anyone have any? We're getting pretty close to the end. So anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments about anything I've said so far? All right. Then let's do one last little thing I want to talk about before we go for the day. So this is really for, in case any of you are Star Trek fans out there, or similar kinds of media. You've all probably heard people talk as if there's a conflict between reason and emotion, right? As if these things are in conflict, or logic and emotion. And I'm going to very strongly argue this entire semester that is not true. That indeed emotion is a powerful, or at least can be a powerful ally in reasoning about the world. Have any of you ever tried to talk with someone about something that they do not care about at all? it is miserable. It is absolutely miserable, right? Why? Because they don't care. Because they don't have any emotional attachment or commitment to the topic. And so as a result, they don't feel any real impetus to investigate it. I mean, caring about stuff can be a really powerful spur to investigate things and to care about investigating things well. It's way better to talk with someone who really strongly disagrees with you about a topic but cares about it than someone who doesn't care at all, right? Because you're both going to be pushing each other to do better because you care about the truth, you care about the thing that's being discussed. So emotion's not the enemy. Okay, but now, other side though, but just because we feel a certain way about something, that in and of itself isn't evidence to believe that anything is or is not true. Right? Again, because I can find people who feel really strongly in the opposite direction. So emotions aren't our enemy. They're also just not going to count as evidence, at least in the abstract. Right? We're going to need to focus a lot, and this again, we'll start with this right away on Thursday, with the question of what does count as good evidence for various kinds of beliefs, and it's not going to be an easy question. But to do that, we don't have to become unemotional robots, right? So anyone who tells you otherwise, I think, is trying to sell you a false bill of goods. So they're trying to trick you in some way. It is fine to be passionate about things. It's good to be passionate about things, right? We're just going to have to distinguish that passion from what counts as good evidence for holding a belief. All right. We've gone for about half an hour today, so I think that's probably good. Like I said, my goals while we're doing this Zoom stuff to try to have these sessions be as short as possible, because I know it's hard. it is hard to sit through a lot of this online thing. So let's end it now for today. I think this should be a good place to call it. Anyone have any last, again, questions, thoughts, comments? Feel free to unmute yourself to the chat. Raise your hand. All right. So for next class session, so I won't email the Zoom links again. I just wanted to do it today in case there were any late additions to the course. In general, the links to the Zoom sessions, if you go into Canvas within the course modules, they'll be basically each day there's a class session. And if you click on that, there'll be a page that says what we're going to talk about that day. So an overview, any readings that you should do before coming to class, any videos that you should watch before coming to class, and then there'll also be a link to the Zoom session. For next class, there won't be any videos, but there is a very short reading I'd like you to do before coming in. It's very short. It's like 2 pages long. So just read that over. You don't need to do any other work with it. Just be prepped for it. We'll actually start doing some group stuff on Thursday. And we'll talk about the short little article that I have for you that's sort of just going to continue some of the things we've been talking about and get us started with this question of what really counts as good evidence for our beliefs and where do our beliefs about stuff even come from. So, all right. Thank you all very much. I'm looking forward to the semester. I hope this should be a fun, interesting class. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me if you have any questions about anything. I know it's going to be another strange semester, or maybe at this point it's a new normal, I guess. I don't know, but things are weird again. So if there's anything I can do to help you, please don't hesitate. Let me know. Get in touch with me. I teach to teach. I have to do other stuff as part of my job, but I do all that other stuff to teach. So you're not going to be bothering me or distracting me. This is what I'm here for. So if there's any sense I can be a resource for you, I might not even know the answer to your question, but I can hopefully at least find someone who does know the answer to it. So use me as a resource. Office hours are ready. Come, don't hesitate. And yeah, I'll see you all later. See you all on Thursday. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
Hi, Professor.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you? I'm so sorry my camera's off. It's just that
Oh,
I'm
right.
actually doing I'm actually doing everything at home right now.
I understand.
But yeah, how do you personally, I wanted to see, just because you are into like philosophy and everything, I wanted to see how you feel about just like astrology beliefs and stuff.
So there was so I teach, one of the things I teach is medieval philosophy, and there actually is a lot of discussion of astrology stuff in that time period. There's a lot of discussion of it, both pro and con. People were sort of into it and not into it. It's started to fall out of favor around the 1500s or so. And the reason is because the philosophical justification for it was a particular understanding of the way in which things like the stars or whatever could influence human behavior that people started to find philosophically kind of hard to justify. It was called this might be getting more than you wanted to get into it, but it was called the theory of sympathetic causation. It sort of got replaced by other theories of causality that made people start to be more suspicious of the ability of things like the stars or celestial bodies to influence human events in any sort of direct way.
Okay.
So that's at least the history of it. That's at least the history of it anyway.
Okay. Yeah, it's just that because I was listening to what you said about like, how you could talk to a person and like specifically someone that doesn't like completely agree with you.
Yep.
And but they can still care for the topic.
Yeah.
And I was just really interested in that because I was like, well, maybe I don't know. Originally I am like, or my family is Catholic and stuff. And eventually at some point I have to, move on my own and, create my own like beliefs and stuff.
Sure.
And
yeah,
because I'm like my own person and stuff. So eventually, like, I don't know, it was just a curious like question I had specifically just because of this class and stuff. But okay. Yeah. I'm excited to learn though. Specifically.
And one thing I can say, at least the Catholic tradition in general thinks that that's exactly right, and you need to go do that. You need to
I know.
come to your own intellectual journey through it. That is part of the Catholic tradition itself. So
yeah, I do. All right. Well, it was really nice to meet you.
It's very nice meeting you as well.
I'm excited to start your class though.
Awesome. Good. And I'll see you on Thursday. Bye.